Si o te ofa ko hoku hingoa ko Johnson Raela, malo hou mau mea mai ki he polokalama the Pacific.
Ko hoku hingoa ko Alice Lolohea, pe o ma loto fia ke talitali lele ki mo tolu ki polokalamani.
Let's see what's coming up on the show. What impact will the US elections have on the Pacific?
The lasting legacy of Tonga's royal family.
And the Pacific shop owners offering a piece of home for their Aussie customers.
We don't just sell them the items, we tell the story that goes with it.
But first, we head to New Caledonia, where after a few false starts, Pacific Islands Forum leaders have finally visited the French territory.
After returning home, Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka said he'd be personally willing to intervene in New Caledonia's push for independence.
The Prime Ministers of Tonga, Cook Islands and Solomon Islands Foreign Minister were also in New Caledonia, meeting with leaders and locals to better understand the situation and try to help find solutions in a Pacific way.
A high-level visit to New Caledonia is the latest attempt to find a political solution to the crisis that has engulfed the French territory since May. The three-day fact-finding mission was headed by PIF Chair and Tongan Prime Minister Huakavameliku Siosi Sovaleni. The delegation included Fijian Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka, Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown and Solomon Islands Foreign Affairs Minister Peter Chanel Angkovaka.
J'ai évoqué avec eux les obstacles ou les quelques écueils qu'il faut lever, qui sont liés directement à notre statut actuel, parce qu'on n'est pas un État indépendant qui a la liberté de travailler. Donc ça fait partie des sujets d'avenir sur lesquels il faudra travailler.
The visit was initially scheduled to take place in July before the PIF Leaders Summit, but was postponed due to differences between New Caledonia's government and France.
This is very somewhat sensitive matter for the French state. Previously, France's ambassador to the Pacific has said this is an internal matter for France. Well, it's clearly not. It's a matter of regional attention.
New Caledonia's leaders want to show they are ready to begin moving forward. They also want to seek guidance from Pacific neighbours, many of whom have a history of colonisation. The mission's head, Prime Minister Sovaleni, said they were there to listen and not pass judgment. Talanoa or conversations were held between PIF leaders, New Caledonian political parties, the French embassy, civil society and indigenous groups. In a handwritten poem, PM Rabuka summed up the most important part of the mission was friendship. The leaders will now prepare a report to present at the next PIF Leaders Summit in Solomon Islands in September next year.
To break it all down for us, we are joined by Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown, who joins us from Rarotonga. Kia ora and welcome back to the show.
Kia ora, Johnson. It's great to be on the show. It's also great to be back home.
Firstly, Prime Minister, what were your observations and what did the people you met with tell you?
Well, we were part of the Troika mission, the mission that was sent by the Forum to assess the situation on the ground as a fact-finding mission and report back to our Forum leaders. So the devastation is very apparent, and to those that were affected by it directly, it is very traumatizing when we spoke to some of these people about the loss that they experience, and they cannot themselves understand why the violence was taken to this level. There is going to be a critical need for a financial rescue package for New Caledonia with 25,000 people out of work. The second aspect of it is in terms of the political situation and the need to foster and encourage dialogue. So there is a significant proportion of the New Caledonia population that is looking forward to the resumption of discussions and talks about what sort of New Caledonia do they want for the future.
The visit has been described as strictly observational, but the term mediator has been floated around. Is that a role that PIF could play?
Well, the Forum provides a neutral space, if you like, for any of our members, for any concerns that they have. And certainly that's how we see our role as neutral players in this particular concern. This is an issue that is impacting New Caledonia and the New Caledonian people. The PIF or the Forum or any of our leaders are not in a position to tell New Caledonia what they should do. We're there to provide support to help achieve outcomes that they are wanting.
Could the Pacific Policing Initiative be called upon to deploy Pacific officers to New Caledonia to help restore and monitor the peace?
That was one of the things that we discussed with various groups that came to see us. The recent forum leaders meeting, the Regional Policing Initiative was discussed and raised and stood up by the members as something that we're supporting. This was something that we talked about as well with the New Caledonian political parties, with the state government, and also with various other groups. The beauty about our Troika group was that it was made up of members of our Pacific region who had different backgrounds and different ways to achieve the autonomy and independence that we have. We had Fiji, led by Prime Minister Rambuka, a country in itself that has been through turmoil with the history of coups that it had. And Prime Minister Rambuka was able to give some personal insights into the troubles that Fiji went through. We ourselves have come through a different pathway to our increased independence and autonomy through our free association arrangement with New Zealand. So we were able to share some of those perspectives from each of our countries with New Caledonia to provide them with points of view from their Pacific family that have been through the troubles that they're going through right now, and providing them with some thoughts on how they might see their future moving forward.
Leaders are now going to prepare a report on the visit and present it at the next PIF Leaders Summit. That's 11 months away. Is that too long?
I think we will be circulating the outcomes of our report amongst leaders much sooner than that. And then we will be seeking the leaders their own views and thoughts on what we've reported back to them on the situation on the ground. And then if we can come to agreement on proposed recommendations from our fact-finding mission, we as a forum should be in a position to agree amongst ourselves to release that report to help facilitate, if you like, the dialogue that needs to take place and to help to reduce tensions that may still be simmering.
Lastly, I want to quickly ask about the US elections. What could the outcome mean for the Pacific?
The US re-engagement back into the Pacific really signals what their intent is. There is certainly bipartisan support for a continuation of that engagement in the Pacific. America, regardless of whether it's Kamala Harris or whether it's Donald Trump that wins the election, for the Pacific, the US now recognizes the Pacific as an important partner. It may take a different form depending on who is the president as they look to impose their own presidency, if you like, their own administration. I believe it's coming down to the wire, as they say, in terms of the polling and the analysis. I'll wait and see who the actual winner is next week once the final counts are done.
Prime Minister, me takia tupaka for your time.
Me takia mata. Thank you.
Okay, so as we just heard, Pacific countries will be watching closely as the US heads to the polls on November 5th to elect either former President Donald Trump or Vice President Kamala Harris. The last 4 years of the Biden administration has seen America take a proactive role, ramping up aid and security in the region. Many in the Pacific are wondering what the next 4 years of US relations could look like.
On the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York in September, United States President Joe Biden sat down with the leaders of 3 Pacific Island nations, the President of the Marshall Islands, Palau, and the Federated States of Micronesia.
That was an important meeting because it shored up America's commitment to the freely associated states.
These 3 countries have unique agreements with the US, known as the Compacts of Free Association, which gives the US military uninhibited access to their territories in exchange for money to keep the countries functioning.
And this could be important because the United States has to consider the types of advantages it might have in a potential future war against China.
Countering China's might in the Pacific region has been a big part of the Biden administration's Pacific strategy. It signed the US-Pacific Partnership, plus a bilateral security pact with PNG, and it bolstered diplomatic ties across the region, all in the name of enhancing regional security.
One of the things that the president asked me to do, working with a strong team across the U.S. government, is to up our game in the Pacific.
That New York meeting saw the US recommit to cooperation on climate change and sea level rise.
A huge part of what we're trying to do is make clear that our agenda is broad and deep, and it's meant to address the specific concerns of the peoples of the Pacific.
The government has been keen to reassure Pacific nations that it has its back, no matter the results of the November election.
The United States committed to ensuring the Indo-Pacific region that is free, open, prosperous, and secure.
But on the issue of climate change, many in the Pacific will be wondering if they can be trusted.
I hear these people talking about global warming, and you'll have more seafront property, right, if that happens. I said, is that good or bad?
Certainly in the event of a Trump administration, we could expect to see a withdrawal, an almost complete withdrawal of any US commitments to climate action.
The previous Trump administration dismantled major climate policies, including pulling the US out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Biden rejoined on day one of his presidency, but Trump looks poised to throw the US overboard once again if he wins.
The proposed Republican Party platform says nothing about promoting green energy, just they want to drill, baby, drill.
We will drill, baby, drill.
Other clues can be found in Project 2025, a 900-page policy document widely seen as the blueprint for the next Republican presidency.
This is Project 2025.
Project 2025.
Project 2025.
It calls for an end to the war on coal and gas and more direct action against China.
There are recommendations, for example, in Project 2025 that the United States move significant numbers of personnel, of military personnel from Europe into the Indo-Pacific in order to, quote-unquote, deter China. And so certainly there could be an increased US footprint in the Pacific, but that would be almost entirely military and wouldn't be focused on the real security concerns of the Pacific, which of course are focused on climate change.
The Pacific is already the stage for a great power rivalry between the US and China, but is there a risk tensions could spill over?
Trump's rhetoric around China is very aggressive, especially around economic sanctions, and is very unpredictable. So I certainly don't think it's inevitable that tensions will increase under either a Harris or a Trump administration, but unnecessary escalation of tensions is very high.
A Trump presidency could see America's role in the world change, but Mr. Grossman doesn't expect major changes in the US policy towards the Pacific.
President Trump is actually the first sitting president to sit down with all three leaders at the same time at the White House. So there's certainly precedent for Trump continuing to improve these relationships.
And what has Vice President Kamala Harris said about the Pacific? Well, not much.
It's actually, I think, harder to tell with Harris. I expected we would see largely a continuation of the Biden administration's policies.
US polling shows Ms. Harris is more popular among Asian and Pacific Island voters.
I would say it's a good split. People support Trump's platform. We as a people, as Pacific Islanders, come from very conservative cultures in the island nations back in the Pacific.
Mr. Amulvai is a Democrat and runs a Pacific Islanders for Harris Facebook page. Born in American Samoa, his family migrated to California in 2007. But Mr. Amulvai now fears Pacific Islander immigrants he knows are at risk.
I know there's a big portion of us that have come here to the mainland and have overstayed.
We're going to have the largest deportation in the history of our country.
So they'd certainly be in the first wave of people that Trump and his campaign would be looking to root out, as they say.
It's an historically tight election, and even though American Pacific Islanders make up just 0.5% of the population, both campaigns are courting their vote.
She's here tonight, Tulsi Gabbard.
Former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard was the first Samoan American congresswoman. She's since switched sides and is campaigning with Mr. Trump in battleground states for the Pacific vote.
Aloha! Talofa!
In Nevada, the pair campaigned at an event specifically targeting Pacific Islanders.
Members of our great Asian American and Pacific Islander community, many of whom are here today. You are the greatest people, hardworking people, and we're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you. You're going to take care of us.
Despite Trump's effort to win over Pacific voters, Mr. Amovai feels threatened at the prospect of his return to office.
He is a minority and a person of color, and also a gay man. When someone like Trump's agenda is put in place, it certainly is a threat to the livelihoods and lifestyles of many Americans.
November 4th is the day that Tongans have marked as Tonga Day, an occasion to celebrate culture, history and heritage. But it was originally known as Constitution Day. In 1875, Tonga's first modern king enacted the Constitution. It was an important step for the people of Tonga, but also cemented the legacy of Tonga's royal family. We've got sporting greatness, a legion of loyal and joyful fans, and some of our cultural practices are interesting. But one of Tonga's most unique features is its monarchy. The House of His Majesty King Tupou VI, Fale o Tupou, is the only remaining monarchy in the Pacific, and it's hugely influential and important to Tongan society.
Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Oh, hello, finally.
I know.
Every year, Robert Filo brings tourists through to the eastern side of Tongatapu. This sleepy village of Moa was once a seat of power in ancient Tonga. And here, you'll find these unique pyramid-like structures known as langi.
This one was built around the 16th century during the rule of Raela himself as his burial mound. They tied these rocks to the side of a double-hulled canoe, and then hundreds of men, they have the ropes pulling with the rolling logs, bringing them ashore. Just marvel the constructions.
Yes.
And you can close your eyes for a minute in there and see the people working really hard under the authority of Telea to construct such a monument.
These langi are physical reminders of our ancient dynasties. Established around 900 AD, the Tu'itonga was the paramount ruler of ancient Tonga. Later, two other branches sprung forth, Tu'ihatakalawa and Tu'ikanakupolu, usurping political power and influence from the Tu'itonga, who then became a spiritual figure instead.
Ka pauna koe tau mo ui koe ni I he taimi koe ia, koe o tua e Tu'itonga ia. Pea topu tapu hono sino, pa koe whaunga o e tau tauhi a tau tolu ki aina e whai ki he rere I taha. Ko tau tolu kei ke whai ho tau whatongia, na e o mai ai ke tau tauhi a kia ki nau tolu. Ka pau te utala whakatātā, tanga whewhe tua e o tulangi. Lotonga I heni ai toko lau kilu, koe nau whai e ngā ue koe o tulangi. O kutalaki he ngahi a honi tokuana e whaka ngā ue pōpula I nau tolu. No. Koe Tu'itonga na e toko taha pe. Ka pauna anau pōpula. O si fuoloa hono tā mate e tui tapuange. Pe mo e tui mi ono aho mo I kau hou eki. He toko lahi ange kakai. Ka koe hea uhinga na e kai ke whai pehe ai. He nā nau whai nau tole ngā ue koe tui. Ko e nau tui, te nau mau ho nau inasi mo nau tā puaki pea mei he tui. Hange pe koe tau whai e mea ke lotu.
This absolute monarchy thrived in ancient times. But where is it now? Towards the end of the 18th century, Tonga was plunged into civil war after the tyrant ruler, Tuku'aho, was assassinated. The civil war would last 50 years until Taufa Ahau, an ambitious and strategic rival, launched a campaign to take control of Tonga. Backed by Wesleyan missionaries, Taufa Ahau emerged victorious. 1845, he consolidated all three dynasties under one crown and was christened King George Tupou I, the first king and father of modern Tonga. 1875 saw the enactment of the Tonga Constitution, which limited the powers of the monarch and granted greater freedoms to the people.
His wide powers were now limited to only what is provided in the Constitution. I think the majority of the people, they gained the most privilege. They were granted freedom of slavery. Then they were given, most importantly, the freedom to the fruits of their labors, something they never experienced before.
The days of ancient Tonga faded and the modern monarchy took hold. So, does our modern royal family still carry the same political and spiritual power they once wielded?
You never saw people walking past the palace with an umbrella open. As soon as they'd get to the corner of the palace, you'd see them put their umbrella down. I remember Queen Salote's car saw a man was on a horse riding towards it. He'd get off the horse and sit on the ground. But things have changed now. I think you have to be accessible.
King Tawha'ahau Tupou IV was a champion for education. At one point, Tonga had more PhDs per capita than any other country in the world. But with a better educated populace, grew an appetite for political reform.
We're not talking here about a replacement of the monarchy. We're talking about a democratization and a reform that will allow people to choose their government. It will allow the government to become accountable to the people.
Do you think that there will be a Western-style democracy here in Tonga and it's just a matter of time?
I think it'll happen in the future.
King George Tupou V relinquished many of his constitutional powers, ushering a new era of Tongan politics, monarchy and democracy. In the past, the monarch had the power to elect the government. Now, it would be the people. The way nobles and the royal family live and work has also changed.
The king, queen, crown prince, or the immediate royal family have an income from the government. But for myself and the rest of the royal family, do not have an income from the government. Fortunately, my parents educated us overseas, so therefore we could work and earn our own living. For instance, 2 of my children are civil servants. They work in government. Perhaps the concept of the responsibility has changed very little, but for the royal family, it has always been a leadership role. We lead the people in Christian living. We lead the people hopefully lead the people in education, and in all our cultural activities, we also lead people then.
I think that we still need the constitutional monarchy. When His late Majesty granted the Constitution of Tonga, he did mention again and again how he had hoped that Tonga will remain Tonga for the Tongans.
From multiple flights, boat rides and multi-day hikes, trying to source traditional goods from remote Pacific communities is no mean feat.
But it's the lengths Pacific shop owners go to ensure their Australian customers have a connection to home. Lucy Cooper brings us this story.
When Nancy Waffey arrived in Australia, the single mother of 7 decided to take a leap of faith and open her own shop.
I come from the Numburuan village in Yanguru, that's in the big province of Papua New Guinea. Being in Australia for the first 2 years of my life, I saw that the culture and the identity was slowly fading away as people migrated into the city.
Island Friends opened in 2019. Across 22 provinces, there are over 1,000 tribes in Papua New Guinea.
Our ancestors did not write books. They would draw and they would weave and they would paint to tell their stories. We don't just sell them the items, we tell the story that goes with it.
It's these stories which drive Nancy.
So I came out from a serious domestic violence in Papua New Guinea, and I'm here as a survivor of domestic violence. Now, seeing the hardships and the situations that a woman in Papua New Guinea go through, I mostly try to connect with those groups.
All the products in her shop are painstakingly created in PNG villages. It then can take weeks, sometimes months, before the goods arrive in Australia.
They have to walk 2 days up to Simbai, walk 2 days down, get onto a PMV, come to Medang town, and in Port Moresby, it has to go through fumigation.
Nearly 5,000 kilometres away, PNG Shop services the Perth community.
We sell all the art and crafts from Papua New Guinea, mainly the vellums, which are the bags.
Rennick often travels back to PNG, sometimes taking her family home to their village. Much like Nancy, purchasing handmade goods from remote villages helps uplift lives.
Most of the ladies depend on selling all these vellums, these products. They spend a lot of time, weeks, weaving these bags. So if we buy the bags, it helps them with paying school fees and buying their everyday needs, and it's very important.
As more Pacific Islanders migrate and work in Australia, demand is growing for goods that remind them of home. Customers travel from all over Australia.
I have grandchildren, and I have children that have never been to PNG. One way for me to tell them about our culture is actually getting them clothes or artifacts that is from PNG. It's not just about the items that are being sold here. To me, this is a library.
Looking at the things here reminds me back home that, I still have home with me. Far from home, but home is here.
Just last week, a lady from Papua New Guinea who lives 26 years in Broome came here, and then she saw the Bed of Paradise necklace, and she kissed that necklace, and she was crying here in front of us.
I'm becoming teary here. If I didn't do that, then a mother wouldn't be able to buy sanitary napkins for her daughter. If I didn't do that, a mother who is being affected by domestic violence and doing it tough wouldn't be able to send her child to school.
Wow, such a powerful story.
Very inspiring.
Just quickly though, one Tongan food or thing from back home you wish you could buy from a shop here in Oz?
Honestly, it's the sound of Tongan brass instruments, so I'd buy like a compilation CD.
Oh goodness, that's when I buy my earplugs. But that's our show for this week. Thank you for joining us.
Look at you.